Really excited to be moderating this panel. I am obsessed with the idea of tiny payments, micropayments or nano payments, depends on how you want to define it. And I'm an entrepreneur, but the companies that I build are not in crypto. So I'm not actually in this industry full time. So don't worry, I'm not raising any money. Although I will accept your money in one form. If you go to calledit.club, it's a Handcash app. You can make your NFL picks this week, and like 2 cents of it will go to me because I'm top of the leaderboard right now from last year. So I will take it that form. But I love tiny payments because I'm obsessed with trying to see massive breakthroughs that are coming in the economy. And I like to think about when GPS, very accurate GPS, you guys can sit down if you want to, it's okay. Very accurate GPS was possible on phones. It took a while, but you saw massive breakthroughs, entire industries launched, like Uber, Lyft, right? All of the delivery apps, anything location-based. Because of that one technological thing, it wasn't possible before, then it was possible. All these industries have been built. I see very tiny payments like that. So how many of you have made a payment on the internet for less than $1? Raise your hand. Kind of cheating because you all got Handcash earlier. How about less than 25 cents? Less than a penny. That wasn't possible before. Why? You ever heard of Ronald Coase? Anybody? There's a couple nerds in this room. There's one nerd. Ronald Coase was an economist who wrote a very famous paper called The Theory of the Firm. And basically the theory of the firm is like, why do we group some economic activities together in large chunks, like hiring somebody at an annual salary, and other activities we pay for in small units on an ongoing basis? Why do we group together and form firms instead of every individual just interacting on a contraction, as an individual contractor? Because transaction costs exist. So every time you make that transaction, I've written some books on like Amazon and stuff. Don't worry, they're not bestsellers. I'm just using this as an example. I get like little tiny royalty payments, right, whenever somebody buys one of these books. And every month or so, I see in my checking account like $12 from Amazon, from all of these little royalties. And what Amazon has to do is wait till the end of every month, put together this one transaction, send it to me. I'm waiting 5 days or whatever for it to clear. This is kind of annoying. I mean, if you've run payroll before, if you've done any kind of invoicing, you know this, right? So they can't pay me instantly every time someone buys that book because the few pennies I'm going to get are just not worth it. The cost of that transaction exceeds the value. Markets exist in absolutely everything, in every part of our lives, in every activity, but many times those markets are not money priced. So you are exchanging time or attention, and there's no money price on it. Like, what is the cost to you of reading a tweet? I don't know, but there is a cost. There is an equilibrium. There is supply and demand. Micropayments allow us to extend the money-priced transactions down to the furthest extent of the market. And what that does is it makes them more efficient. You can do all kinds of interesting things. Like, if I was getting streaming payments for my book royalties, what if I could take those and I could say, I'm going to sell these. I'm going to sell this revenue stream. Or I'm going to sell 50% of it to somebody else. And what if no lawyers had to be involved in that? If I could package that up and it's all baked in, right? When you tie data, making it as easy for a bit of information to move, making a bit of money price to move, that simple, when you start to think about the breakthroughs that are possible, that's what gets me excited. And that's why I'm excited to moderate this panel with people who are working in the payments industry and who are building some of the things that I think will lead the future, the breakthroughs that have only been possible since about 2009 or so, and most people still don't know it. Most people still don't know that you can do instant transactions for hundredths of a penny or thousandths of a penny. This is still like a huge secret, which is what excites me. So, without further ado, I'm going to jump into the panel, and I'm not going to do lengthy introductions of everybody. I want to get right into the meat of it. So I'm just going to briefly, as I ask a question, introduce or reintroduce in some cases who we're talking with here. So I'm going to start off with Brandon, Handcash engineer, who talked to you earlier. Brandon, I want to know, when you got started with Handcash, or even just in the crypto industry or blockchain industry, I don't know if you were doing something else previously before Handcash, what did you expect the main use case to be of your users? And then what have you actually seen that it is? And is there a difference there?
Yeah.
Are you surprised?
I would say my personal journey kind of starts out with a lot of people, like a lot of people have had. I kind of came for the speculation and I stayed for the utility. I was fortunate to get into crypto a little early on, and then I was in college and I had a lot of money for a college kid, and I thought that was really cool. But then I'm like, okay, how do I use this? How do I spend it at the bar? How do I buy stuff with it? So it really was just about retail payments for me at first. And then later on I realized like micropayments could be such a huge thing.
And do you, with Handcash, have you seen things that people love or ways that people use it that came as a surprise to you from your users? Or
Yeah.
features that they love that you wouldn't have expected?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one is Haste Arcade, as Joe just presented, is we had no idea, we didn't think of instant leaderboard payouts. So it's just this idea of what's the unseen consequences of the current state of online payments, and what kind of like economic activity has yet to be created.
Yeah, that is amazing. That idea of owning a percentage of a revenue stream of something very small. I think instantly about developers creating like APIs or things, for example,
Right.
being able to get paid a few pennies every time somebody hits that API, and then saying, hey, I've done this 100 times and I have a portfolio of these payments that are streaming to me, and maybe I can sell. Like,
Right,
it
and
blows your
you're
mind.
going from 0 to 1 really quickly. It's like,
Yes.
before it was so hard to earn your first 25 cents on the internet. Like here, like the barrier is so low to earn your first penny. It's incredible.
And Handcash is amazing at that. I have my kids are all on Handcash,
Nice.
and I make them pick NFL games so that I can take their money. Although they beat me too. They beat me often. When you're a Detroit Lions fan and your emotions get involved, you lose a lot of money. 10-cent increments though. That's what's great. It keeps my pain level lower. Marshall, who's the CEO of Ionia, which you have like over 20 years in the payments industry. You have tons of patents. You've helped process billions of dollars for thousands of companies. So being in payments for so long, when you saw blockchain come on the scene, like was this something that you immediately saw as, oh, this is going to change the game for what I'm doing? Or were you skeptical? Like what made you take that leap?
I am by nature a skeptic. So when I first heard of blockchain, I was definitely taking a look at it with a fresh set of eyes, trying to understand it. But the first line of the Bitcoin white paper mentions those trusted third parties. Kurt referred to them as a Visa node. That was me. I was part of the problem. It didn't take me 20 years to figure out that it was a problem, though, that payments was fundamentally broken. But that is, you could call it in the blockchain analogy, a layer 3. You have payments. Below that, you have banks. All payments, if you aren't aware, actually are processed by a bank within all the existing legacy rails. They're fundamentally just ACH payments with an authorization sitting on top from a Visa network or a MasterCard network, et cetera. So we have these ACH rails that's bank to bank. We have layers on top of that, what I call layer 3. What's the layer 1? The layer 1 is the money system, the fiat money system. And it took me a long time to realize that I was, $6 billion in payments. I hadn't made a dent in the money system, and I hadn't made a dent in the banking system. I had left my footprint in payments, but that was it. And I couldn't fundamentally change anything in a very significant way because I was working on layer 3. So when I discovered blockchain and started working on how to solve some of the big payment problems, I realized that you had to start at the money level. You have to start in that layer 1. And now, all of us in the room have the ability to create a money system. That is fundamentally a huge step forward in human progress on the economic and financial transaction capabilities, right? And the ability to connect existing systems back to that is I think, a necessary step to get a mass adoption on, as Brandon put it, retail payments. So that's what we've kind of focused on in leveraging the blockchain assets.
So I've got a quick follow-up. When you were talking about layer 3, you were on, and I'm not super technical, so bear with me if this is a dumb question, but do you see what you're able to do with a blockchain, like a functioning blockchain, like Bitcoin, for example, or it could be another one, as collapsing this down and saying we have a single layer now that serves as the money layer, the payments network, all these other things? Or do you see that as this is the baseline and we're going to build all kinds of layers on top of it? I'm just curious, like, because some people, I think I've heard people say like, we're removing all these unnecessary additional layers, and other people saying, no, the fundamental layer does very little, everything else has to be built in additional layers. How do you see that?
Yeah, so we're actually transacting on layer 1. We've added our own protocols within the UTXO blockchains.
Okay.
So we're doing instant payments on BTC, BCH, all of the different assets on chain. So we do believe that collapsing the layers is really important. I'm actually disintermediating my own company. So I've had 11 exits, and
Well,
I
do it
decided
before
not
someone
to-
else does it, right?
Right. Well, I decided that it made sense to invest in that rather than to reinvest into selling legacy payments where I could impact things on a global basis.
I love it. I love it. Mohammed, who is the CEO of InvoiceMate, who's also a I don't know, a representative and advocate for BSV in the MENA region. I'm curious if you know, InvoiceMate, and I'd like to hear a little bit about what exactly it does, but did you have the idea for this business and then come across the technology that enabled it? Or did you come across the technology and say, oh, this is groundbreaking, I need to build a business on top of it? I'm curious which one of those. I've met entrepreneurs who have had both, you know, both starting points.
Right. So it's an interesting story. A lot of people who know that the head of the BSV hub in Middle East, they think that I'm using BSV for my solutions based on this relationship. Actually, it's a reverse kind of a relationship. I was using Hyperledger Fabric. It's an enterprise solution, invoice, primarily invoice management system, now moving towards the invoice financing system. So it's completely not a crypto application. And we were using, because enterprises and the governments, they like Hyperledger Fabric as a permission blockchain protocol. So we used to use that. But Jimmy, who's currently, I'm not seeing him here around, he convinced me when I was not part of the BSV team. We just met in an event as a fellow speakers, and he convinced me about the BSV use case for the enterprise applications, and that was the starting point. Then we, as a team, started to explore the BSV's capabilities for enterprise scalable blockchain solution, and from that point onwards, we started using it. Not just for InvoiceMate, by the way, we have done plenty of other projects, mostly in the enterprise and government space, 99% on BSV. And this is like a strange transition that brought me into then BSV, being a BSV advocate as well.
There's kind of two, like there's the practical sense in which using something like BSV can help your business case. So it's like, oh, it's an easy win. But as you know as well as I do, you know better than I do, in enterprise, you're not just selling the solution and, oh, look, the technology works. You're selling the brand and the feelings. And so by adopting BSV as part of what you were, you know, part of your technology or your solution for companies, has that made it harder for you? You know, because a lot of people are like, oh, blockchain is just a buzzword. Some people are like, oh, good, throw money at it. But many people are like, oh, it's a scam, I'm skeptical. So even if it solves a technical problem, does it create a selling problem for you?
Indeed, in the beginning, it indeed created a problem, especially the word Bitcoin is not like it's a taboo word in the enterprise and government space. But slowly and gradually, we've been educating our clients that permission blockchain, I'm very convinced that it shouldn't be called as a blockchain. It should be called as a fancy ledger or database, but it's no more like a blockchain. So we used to start orienting them, and that's the reason why I started joining the BSV ecosystem, because I was advocating BSV, and that was like the starting point for me to start actually taking a position and promote it in the whole region. So we first of all convinced ourselves as the tech entrepreneurs and the team who was doing solutions. Then we educated and made this clarity to our clients that it's no more like a crypto or token. It's a proper solution you need on powered by a technology. And these are the different technology options. Hyperledger Fabric is one of them. Solana, Ethereum. These are the pros and cons. And based on this, our analysis suggests you use BSV. So as I said, we did face some issues in the beginning based on some reputation issues as well. But gradually things were getting better. And now, based on pure merits, we use BSV in our company, not that I'm affiliated with the BSV.
Yeah. No, it's so funny how this happens, because I'm similar. Like, I don't care about BSV at all. I'm super passionate about tiny payments. BSV happens to just do them really, really well, and I haven't found anything that does them better. And everybody knows, like in business, you're not selling a drill or a drill bit, you're selling a hole in the wall, right? You're selling the solution, not the product itself. But something happens when you're like, okay, cool, I'm looking for the solution. And once you see what it can do, it's hard to not turn into a religious zealot and be like, oh my gosh, and then people are like, would you get away with me with your crazy BSV talk? Alexey, co-founder of DXS, and I know you were presenting a little bit earlier your trading platform. I'm curious, I'd love to hear the founding story of that platform and why micropayments are such a necessary component of that. I know you have micro trading, but so do some other app platforms like Robinhood and things that are not using micropayments under them. Why is that technological capability important for what you're doing?
Okay, so when we started to develop DXS, it was even called differently back then. So we wanted to be transparent and auditable, so everything is like accessible to the customers, to the users, and so that's why we decided to do it on chain. And secondly, we wanted it to be scalable. That was another the second factor, and that's how we selected BSV, because it provided both, like transferability and transparency is the right word, and scalability. So, and then I like why we came to the idea of micro trading. I think when we started to look at the different applications already built on BSV, we came by Twitch. It's like a social media where you put the like and you instantly give 1 cent for that like. So I think that's how the idea actually came up. I mean, like, why we don't do the same with the trading, and that will be the way to differentiate ourselves from other competitors who are already up there and very big. I mean, and definitely there is demand there, because there are people who don't have substantial funds to risk for trading, but they still want to, take a flavor of it, so they want to try it. So I think that's how this micro trading idea came up.
Yeah, and I love what you said about making it transparent, because as I mentioned, I know some of these other apps advertise, oh, you can buy a fraction of a share in different things. There's a lot of trust involved there. There's a lot of security issues potentially, and I want to get your take on this. I feel like we're still in a spot where most users don't care yet. They're kind of trusting, whatever, it's easy. I don't care if I'm actually sending an IOU or if I'm sending the actual thing, or if my money's actually there, or you're going to reimburse me later or whatever. They don't care about the mechanics. But I'm wondering if that's starting to change. Like when markets start to tank, when you start to get some companies that go under, and it turns out it was a house of cards. So do you have any experience with users like valuing the fact that you are running this on a blockchain so that they can not only have the tiny transactions, but that they can actually see that there's it's not custodial, right? Is that something that you see being a valued feature by your users, by people who are trading?
I think probably not fully at the moment. That's exactly so. So it's still to be, they understand. I mean, we have this vision, but I think, many customers don't value it yet that much. But it's still to happen. I think that again with bear market, with downturn, and with some scams coming up, and people losing their money. I mean, they start to care about that, and and then they see the benefit of it.
Yeah. It's amazing that convenience security trade-off. It's like there's almost no way to shift people's preferences there without them experiencing something painful, or at least watching somebody else. Yeah, I've definitely started to see people care more about, wait a minute, how's this working? Which I think is a really, really good sign. A bull market is a great time to become really ignorant and sloppy. Marshall, you work with multiple blockchains, correct?
Correct.
So I'm curious, from your standpoint, do you see a clear winner? If you were going to say, is there going to be one blockchain that's going to be particularly for micropayments at scale that you are betting on, or do you have kind of like a multi-chain approach? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so to clarify a little bit, I'm actually looking at micropayments as the war room, so to speak, to prove scalability, speed, and cost efficiency. So in our platform, our average transaction amount is about $65. We go up to about $2,000. and we do see transactions between 500 and 2,000 every day. So why do we care about micropayments? Well, we care about micropayments because there's a large segment of our customer base, millions of wallet holders, who need to be able to make small transactions as well. And it is very, very difficult to do when the cost on chain is very high. And so we can subsidize that for only so long before we go, this is no longer economical for us.
Is that how you're solving it on chains like BTC? You're sort of eating that cost, or how does that work?
Yeah, kind of. So we don't charge anything on the spread. We don't charge any fees to the user. They do pay the network fees, but you can select your fees on most chains, and we don't need the transaction to actually settle instantly. Obviously that's impossible on most chains. BSV has an advantage, clear advantage there. We've built our own crypto pay technology that allows us to do on-chain transactions instantly from wallet to wallet. So now we can only do that on certain chains, right? And it is costly for the end user if they want to make a $3 purchase at Chipotle or something, right? So being able to solve for micropayments means that you have the scalability, the cost efficiency, and the speed that's necessary for payments as a whole. Just a quick example, we launched a beta and we actually exceeded the global limit of transactions for Bitcoin within the first hour. So what does that mean if we had sustained that and gone to an open product, like a publicly available product beyond just the beta? Like what would have happened to us had we done 10 transactions a second for the next year? I don't know the answer to that, but I suspect it would be really bad for us, and we probably wouldn't have actually gotten the funds. Now, we did get the funds because it was a short period of time during that beta, but it does bring into question like which chains we want to invest into because they can support our growth as just one small company in the ecosystem.
So are you betting on any particular chain, or are you still sort of keeping your finger on whatever's new?
You know, Unbounded Capital was really wise to invite me to this because I knew very
job,
little.
Unbounded Capital.
Yeah, Zach, great job wherever you went. We actually have BSV integrated already. We didn't have a very clear understanding of like the advantages of it from an economic perspective. And there were several people like Brandon and Joe and Tyler who talked to me all last night and told me all the advantages and showed me their products actually working instantly for very, 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 very small fractions of a penny. And I can see now the advantage of integrating BSV into our applications. And we do have one of our wallet partners, Edge. I'm going to call the CEO tomorrow. I think they already support BSV, so I think it would make a lot of sense for us to launch that initiative with them initially.
One more question for you, and I know I don't want to be giving you too much of the time when we got everybody else here, but when you're adopting it, because you said you work with multiple chains, and you are kind of helping retailers accept payments from these people who hold these coins in their wallets. Is that correct, or sort of correct?
Very close. Yeah, it's a little complex. So the value proposition to the merchant, somebody like Amazon, Walmart, the Visa network, they really don't care. They don't. We're paying them in USD, right? What they care about is marketing. How do they get more market share, in particular in this digital age? How do they reach the younger generations who might have cryptocurrency or might not? But how do they reach them? And we've built and patented a platform that uses geolocation and behavior to identify offers that are close to you and make you an offer to get, say, 5% cash
so
back.
To make it worth your time to add BSV, for example, there needs to be a lot of users.
There needs to be a lot of users, but additionally, the cost is so low that we can actually, I haven't run the numbers, but we can probably just not charge anything. And it would be attractive for those who even already have other crypto assets to swap into BSV to transact on our platform.
It's very interesting. Actually connects to my question for you, Brandon. I know you guys have added or are adding support for USDC. What is do you have a different answer to that question? Is there one blockchain that is going to dominate the micropayment space? What is kind of your strategy and your outlook on that?
Yeah, we think Bitcoin SV will dominate just because it's a simple fact of when there's more transaction, the transaction fees get lower, and there's incentives for that to happen. And every other blockchain that I've seen, whenever CryptoKitties gets traction or anything, transaction fees skyrocket, there's network congestion. So just the architecture of Bitcoin with an uncapped block size, it makes sense economically. What was the original question?
Well, in connecting, so do you see sort of the actual usability needing something like BSV, but maybe the onboarding or bringing people in to,
Right,
to allow
right.
them to sort of come from other coins maybe?
Yeah, so the vision with USDC is because it is a growing economy. I mean, USDC it's only $50 billion, and I remember like it's still really small compared to the payments industry in general. But I think USDC and stablecoins in general have a great opportunity to increase in market cap like BTC did in like 2017. Just go from like 50 billion to now it's $1 trillion. But I think stablecoins can do that pretty easily. And the stablecoin that's going to be the winner is going to be the one that's on the rails that's the most frictionless. So Handcash wants to join the USDC economy by making it easy to transfer USDC from Solana wallet into Handcash and being able to withdraw into a Solana wallet. And we think by offering this seamless experience, cash out to your bank account is, you might be on BSV, but it's all about the feeling. And I think we can make it feel like you're on this USDC network that's, you know, multi-chain, but you just get all the benefits of being on BSV.
Yeah, that stablecoin component, I'm always interested from your users, even though it's very small amounts, seeing, hey, I earned $2 in a game and now it's only $1.70.
Yeah,
right? If you're not a crypto person.
They think we stole their money.
Yeah,
'Cause
my daughter wondered about that earlier, so I told her to just depreciate
Right.
since last season she played. Called it Crack Club. Sorry.
Yeah,
Little
and
promo.
we really believe that this concept of streaming money can stand on its own.
Yeah.
So there's no need to add this, you know, speculative game on top of that. I mean, I'm a believer in the BSV asset long term, but that's not core to like Handcash success.
Yeah.
Like we can just be a great payments company.
Let Alexey handle the trading component and you handle the usability component. Mohammed, I'm curious, so we've talked primarily up here about B2C use cases, gaming, you know, retail, trading. Have you seen a different approach or different use cases take off in the Middle East or in the MENA region?
UAE is a very different type of approach. They always take a different approach, but very progressive one. They started with the adoption of the technology of the blockchain, especially in the government side. I remember like they were having 72 implementations back by 2021, which is, I think, a total sum is equal to the total sum of the other world implementation on the government level. So, but now in the last 1 year, they are equally like going to adopt the payment side of the crypto, and the crypto applications are like getting implemented thick and fast. So yes, it is pretty much the same use cases which you just mentioned. UAE has the similar like adoption curve, but at the same time, they are now involving the hospitality, which is a big industry there. The bigger airline Emirates, they are now going to get payments in the crypto. There was again many of the real estate like developers who were taking payments in crypto. So yes, it is happening, and I'm seeing another year for that to be becoming at a mass level. But surely when they decide, I mean, when I say they, I mean the rulers or the decision makers in the government, they decide that okay, let's implement this. There is no bureaucracy there, so it's top down. It happens very fast. So next year I can come up with very many use cases of payments happening in the crypto in UAE.
Yeah, I tend to think the massive breakthroughs are probably going to be fueled by some of the most unsexy use cases, right?
Yeah.
Some of that stuff happening in enterprise behind the scenes that none of us think about, you know, that there's just so many things there that aren't maybe as flashy or interesting to an up-and-coming entrepreneur, but...
Absolutely, that's the future for the crypto blockchain. If you are not reaching out and solving the problems of the conventional business, which are 97% of the overall, crypto applications are maybe 2 or 3%. It's a futuristic problem solving. All of the startups are moving into it. There are problems in the conventional businesses. That's why I opted for InvoiceMate, because invoices are happening in every sector: private, public, small, medium, large size organizations. They all involved in the invoicing, invoice processing, invoice payments, invoice financing. So it's like a huge ecosystem which was never been tapped before. So this is one use case. I welcome other people to come and explore the conventional world, the real world, where there are like many problems you can solve with the blockchain.
Yeah. Alexey, from my understanding, a lot of your user base is unbanked. Is that correct?
Underbanked.
Underbanked.
I like this word more because unbanked is, you know, it's someone who usually don't have any cash to spend. So underbanked is someone who has some resources but don't have access to modern banking facilities, who doesn't have credit card, debit card, bank account, maybe, so, but still have some cash.
Do you see, because this is something that I sort of expected a lot more of in the early days of crypto, people conducting all kinds of exchanges and doing all kinds of things outside of the banking system. It seems, at least in the United States, most people, it's very much become connected to the banking system. And you even mentioned for Handcash, hey, this is a big feature our people want. They want to be able to pull their stuff off of Handcash, put it into a bank. Do you see unique use cases that are happening completely outside of banking and they never go back into the banking system, right? That they're just completely sort of off of the original or the pre-existing banking structure, but they're using crypto kind of within its own economy?
No, exactly. I think first of all, I mean, like if the proper like casual payments method are adopted, and then I don't see why, you know, completely independent payment system, especially in the parts of the world where the traditional banking is not, you know, well developed, cannot just, you know, continue and grow. So that's definitely will be happening.
Yeah. I'm curious, by the way, how much time do we have? I want to make sure that I'm not going too deep on some of these.
We got about 9 or 10 minutes left, sir.
Perfect, thank you. I'm curious, I've heard people mention this to me when I've gotten really hyped up about micropayments. People have said there's sort of a limit to the human brain that, like, and this would apply mostly to B2C or any use case where humans are the ones making the transactions, if it was maybe automated with data. But they're like, once you get below $1, humans don't really know how to work with numbers that small. And so paying a tenth of a penny to turn a page in a Kindle book is just kind of a stupid business model. That one actually does sound stupid to me personally. But like, hey, it's just easier to pay $10 a month to have my audiobooks unlimited than to pay per minute or whatever. What are your thoughts? Anyone who has an opinion on this, I'll take a couple answers on what, you know, is the reason that micropayment-based business models haven't emerged, is it not just because of the tech? Is it because they're just bad business models and humans don't operate that way? Is there some limit to what you can do with tiny payments?
Yeah, I do think there's some limit because there is like a cognitive load when you're confronted with the payment and you have to decide, like, am I going to make this payment or not? And it doesn't really matter if it's 10 cents or 1 cent. So that's definitely something these new business models have to take into effect. But something like Spotify or Audible, you know, there's so many streaming services now, and it's so disjoint. And if you want to watch Game of Thrones, like, am I gonna, like, I just want Game of Thrones. I don't want the HBO subscription. You know, when everything's so fragmented, micro payments just make sense, I think.
There's also a possibility of the front end maybe isn't micro. Maybe I want to pay $10 a month for Spotify, but the back end, the way artists are getting paid out, maybe is streaming and
right.
like that.
Yeah, and it'll just overall lead to better, like, more efficient businesses because, like, the power users on Spotify are really getting a good deal. If you're listening to Spotify 24/7, like, you're paying $10. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But, you know, then you just make suckers out of, you know, someone who listens to a casual podcast or something. And I think there's a lot of money being left on the table for people that are just, then they're inconvenienced with ads if you don't want to pay. So I'm really excited for micropayments to really disrupt online advertising and things like that.
You're kind of talking about a denomination challenge, right?
Yeah.
So the US dollar can only be broken down to a penny, and that is fundamentally a problem when you're trying to accomplish some of these things we've been talking about. And so these other blockchain assets like BSV can solve for that. I do think that the denominations become kind of insane. Like I live on crypto today, and often I just ignore the non-USD equivalent that I'm paying, because if I'm paying in Bitcoin, for example, I don't know, like when I see this number with a bunch of zeros, like mentally I'm like, I don't know, but I know how much I'm paying the merchant, right? And so, you know, there are things that have been done in the legacy payment systems to already solve for this. So think about if you get points at American Eagle, for example. I think it's 2,500 points is equal to $10, right? So they already have a way to redenominate in a way that humans can understand. 2,500 points is something I can grasp. And there's a problem, though, in that there's not a real value associated with it. And so there is an opportunity, I think, to bring some of that solution set into some of these solutions so you can understand your balances, how much you got on that transaction, how much you're paying, in a way that we can work with the number, but still have a very clear value associated with it.
Yeah, it is very interesting that all of these different functions of money theoretically can all be accomplished by something like Bitcoin, but the unit of account component, as long as most people are accounting in dollars, and you get all these zeros, it gets weird. I know Handcash kind of experimented with like duros, like a way of a different denomination that was easier to use.
Yeah, we tried to make basically change the unit account of Handcash to Duro, which is like 2,000 Satoshis. It was a failed experiment, but we were just trying to solve the volatility problem.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like your daughter, she thought we stole her money, but it really just went down in value in USD. So
she didn't blame you, by the way. She blamed me. So.
But yeah, so that journey kind of led us to the inevitability of having a stablecoin inside the app.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about how these things are going to play out. All right, I'm going to do one final question that I want everybody to answer. I'm curious if you can tell me one use case, one business model, one application around tiny payments that is not the business that you're currently in that gets you the most excited. If you think about the next decade, what's a use case for micropayments or nano payments that you get really excited about? So if you're ready, Mohammed, we can start with you. If you're not ready, you can defer.
Yeah, I'll defer.
No, I can give one. I actually think micropayments are very, very big in gaming, so Ice Arcade.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give two. It's very telling when I don't play many mobile games these days, but if you go onto like the Play Store or Apple Store, the top 10 app, just download a game, and it's incredible. Like, you can't even play for 10 seconds without being hit with an advertisement. It's like, I can't believe anybody plays.
Do you know how many versions of Scrabble I had to try to download just to play the original Scrabble?
Oh my God,
without having them be like, buy a power up. You know, I'm like,
terrible.
I don't want a power up. It's Scrabble.
Yeah, I wanted like a poker app that I could just play, and I couldn't find one that I'm not hit with ads. So there's that one, and then also the gamification of everything. Like, I'm a huge fantasy football player, and fantasy football really transformed the NFL. And like, that was a huge revenue stream for the NFL, and like, they have all these shows and all this content just based around this fantasy game. And so I think the gamification of everything can have similar effects for other industries. And I think micropayments are a big component, and digital assets.
I guess I'm up. So there's a hidden feature that we didn't talk about a lot with Handcash. So it's not just a micropayment that he made to everybody who had registered for Handcash today. It was also a split payment, right? And I think combining those two things opens up a whole world of opportunities. So for example, we can turn everybody in this room into an advocate for Handcash, because they can go show the technology, they can share it with other people, and they can get a reward that gets split out, and it doesn't cost a lot to process that transaction. If you were to use Visa rails or ACH rails, for example, to process all those transactions, I mean, it would take them probably months and months of revenue to offset what it would cost to keep hitting that button over and over again with dozens and dozens of people hitting ACH rails at, you know, several dollars a transaction for a fraction of a penny. It just doesn't make any sense. So I think micropayments combined with split payments and this blockchain capability of tracking and attributing by associating wallets together for the transaction has the capacity to really incentivize any industry and turn their fan base into their marketing teams.
Yeah. I have one thing to add, and it kind of leads into the next presentation, and I think it'll really excite you. So the token technology we're using, tokenize, makes it really easy to do these atomic swaps with like multiple parties in it. So you could imagine if I want to pay BSV and you only want to accept USD, there could be a third party in this transaction that's doing the actual conversion, but it's all in one atomic transaction. So it has like some really great benefits of being like this non-custodial atomic transaction while still doing this exchange.
I love it, except you made me the fiat receiver. On that I tell the guy I'm unbanked, and he's like, here, you want more?
Mohammed?
Yeah, incentivizing the behavior, because if we all get tickets, I just give you an example, we all get tickets for, we get penalized for any violation, but governments don't incentivize the good behavior on road or as a citizen, and similarly for any other behavior incentivization, this can be a very good use case, microfinance.
That's really interesting. I've never thought of that, because you think about, like, you've seen those Geico commercials or whatever, like, get rewarded for good driving, but it's all opaque, right? You're like, I guess I'm getting a better rate, but if you had like a little meter that was like, hey, it's now been 10,000 miles without an incident, boop, here's $5 right now in your account. Like, it's some interesting, there's an app, I think it's on Handcash, I could be wrong. It's called Hona, and it's kind of the idea, again, it's very early, but the idea is personal commitments. If anybody ever done one of those like step challenges where you wear a pedometer and you're trying to like see who can take the most steps in a week or something like that? Things like that where you make a commitment and you can like escrow money, either your own or other people's, and then as you make that commitment, you get these like payments come out. There's all kinds of really interesting things around that behavior. I want to wrap this up by just saying, do we want to take a few minutes for questions? No? Okay, cool. Good. You can ask me questions afterwards, but or any of our panelists, not me. I don't know very much about this, but just curious. But I want to, on that note, like, I highly encourage everybody in here. I could be wrong about this thesis that this is a massive breakthrough, the ability to make payments to such small denominations. But in the chance that it is a massive breakthrough, and I think it is, experiment and tinker. Like, be curious. The ecosystem is shockingly still small. Like, it still blows me away how few people are building real things here, primarily because basically none of the technologies can handle it. I have experimented, as I said, I don't care about BSV, I care about tiny payments. And I've built a handful of tiny payment apps as experiments. I've used almost all of them. I've created videos on competitors to YouTube where you can charge $1, and that dollar when someone pays is instantly split between all of the guests that I had, between the person who made the, edited the video. Like, then you can take that stream and you can tokenize it and say, I'm going to sell a token, that any holder of the token gets a percentage of that payment automatically. The things you can do are so cool. Almost no one knows it. So go out there and experiment with some of these apps. Get Handcash, see what apps they have. Go look at all of the, get Twetch, there's a couple dozen right now, and there's probably more. The Unbounded people can probably give you a list. I'm sure they have a list somewhere, and if they don't, they will. But try it, like, play around, because that's where you'll get that light bulb, and you may start to see ways in which, like, as I said, I've built companies in totally unrelated industries, but I already see where these potentially converge in some really interesting ways, like all of the things around the marketing and affiliate marketing landscape, totally going to be changed by this. Tonic Pow is an app you should check out that's on the forefront of this. And hardly anyone knows it, again, because they're kind of relegated to these coins that have religious followings and that are based on hype and Twitter and whatever. When that stuff goes away, there's going to be some real economic activity that's left behind. And I think, to me, the real tangible thing that doesn't require anything new to be invented that hasn't already been invented, nothing new needs to be solved that hasn't already been solved, that's micropayments and nanopayments. So I couldn't be more bullish on it. Thanks to all of our panelists and Unbounded. Appreciate it.